I'd like to welcome you to our program. I'm Gary Null. In our discussion, we're going to explore something that quite frankly, I've never been able to put together before. And sometimes the most convoluted and complex problems have such simple answers. That's one of the joys of living, just being present and being open to whatever is in front of us. The trouble is, what's in front of us we rarely see because of our particular bias. We need to see something. Our expectations, our dreams, our desires, our needs, our ambitions, our fear, all will distort what's in front of us. So even when we have the truth, we don't often embrace it because it doesn't meet our expectations. Before you can grow, before you can learn what you need to know in order to make positive and constructive changes, you first have to understand how many layers of protective conditioning keep you within a very given pattern of thought. So if I'm coming to you with a message that can help you, and here's my message here, but let's say based upon your belief system and what you've done with your life, you're only open to a message here. And what if the message you're open to is not the message I'm giving? We don't connect. And it's only when you connect that a vibrant current, what I call that life consciousness, you can call it whatever you wish, a life force, a healing force, the intrinsic or etherical connection of all things occur. Now you'll see as we go into our discussion, you've had all this phenomena. All of you have experienced this, but you won't appreciate that you all have more knowledge what to do than what you've actually done, right? You know better than the actions you take. You're smarter than the actions you take, right? Yes. You have a knowledge of this, and yet more often than not, you act at this level. And everyone does. I don't care if you're Einstein or never been to school, we all act under our awarenesses, even when it's against our best interest, and you figure out why. Why do I keep doing things that are clearly not in my best interest? I'll explain that because I finally figured it out. It deals with the authenticity of our connection. But to be authentic in your connections, you first have to know yourself well enough to say, where am I open? And what am I open to? And that's not just your choice. Remember, you're also a part of a belief system. Your family, your teachers, your fraternities and sororities, the physicians and priests and rabbis and your clerics, everyone has had something to do with your value system and your beliefs. So you're honoring them at the same time. And therefore, to say, well, you're open for change, yes and no. Intellectually, yes. Desire for change and improvement, yes. But unless all of your mindsets are open to connect with whatever messages are out there that could change your life, no. Won't happen. Just won't happen. First and foremost, ask someone, what is it you want? Then ask them, are you willing to make the change? And you know what you're going to find? A lot of people are not ready for the very thing that they want to change most. A lot of people say, yeah, I want something. Then ask them, are you really ready for what you want? You think you are. Can you handle the change you desire? Oh, sure I can. Not true. There's a whole process of preparation that is necessary before someone actually engages. And when you do engage, you're not only engaging in something new, you're disengaging from something that you no longer want to be a part of. Our stress, our crisis occurs when we know that what we're thinking, doing, acting, feeling is not in our best interest. We know of things that are better. We've seen it on talk shows, read it in books, we've heard it in sermons. It's all around us, these answers. They're proliferate in answers, yet we're not connecting with them. That's because we haven't opened ourselves for a connection to occur. For example, to the women in this audience alone, have you ever been with someone and you just knew that they weren't open emotionally, and yet it had nothing to do with anything they said or did? You could just feel that there was not a connection? Yes. Right? You just intuitively you knew, no matter what you're saying, you're not open. there's no connection. Now that's something scientifically you can't prove, but you don't need to prove it scientifically, because I'm suggesting that science is not and should never have been designated as the final arbiter of all things that are right. We also are, before we're a scientific being, we're a spiritual being. The reality of life far precedes and far exceeds the scientific understanding of it, or the scientific need to justify it. I do not have to justify my existence in the name of science in order to justify my life. Therefore, if I wish to use concepts such as emotions, prayer, feelings, intuition, to me those are as valid as anything I will find in the nucleus of a cell to determine what makes me unique and special and how I can thrive and honor my existence. That said, let's start our process of examining what's necessary to start making the right connections and disengage from the wrong ones. Number one, do your connections provide balance? Now, I mean spiritual balance, emotional balance, physical balance, and interpersonal balance. Let's examine each of those for a moment. How in the world are we supposed to change anything if the very things that we need to change are not in balance? Just imagine if you woke up each day and you're bent like this, right? You're all bent over. And someone says, well, can you lift a weight? I can't lift it, I'm not in balance. What if you get up and you're stressed? Can you answer a question? I can't really think, I'm not in balance. We don't like to be stressed when we're not in balance. We don't like to engage things when we're not in balance. Think of all the things you don't want to do because you just felt out of sorts. You're not in balance. When you're PMSing, your body's not balanced. When you've just had a loss, you're not in emotional balance. You're going through a grieving of a loss of a pet, a job, something. So one of the first things we should understand is how we connect is directly related to where our balance level is in what we're trying to connect to. So stop for a moment and take a look at what it is. If I, for instance, want to connect with my higher spiritual being, I better understand that I cannot connect with something I'm not prepared to connect with by being in balance. Example, I can't do something negative and harmful and seek a spiritual answer. We do it all the time though, don't we? We do something wrong and ask for some form of mercy as if somehow our repentance is enough to give us that redemption. Instead of saying, let me do something spiritual to connect with something spiritual. That's an answer. You've got to do what you want to connect to. Do you understand? So you just can't think about it. And that's why for a lot of people of my generation, the baby boomers, this is such a hard lesson to learn because we try to keep everything an intellectual discourse. If I think it, therefore I am it. Not the case. We have to do it, not think it. A lot of people know what they should be doing with their health, they just don't do it. So think of spiritual things. And what if each day you guided yourself towards your spiritual connections simply by honoring the spiritual in all things? You do not need to do more than simply be kind and thoughtful, compassionate and understanding, even empathetic, where before you would have been just judgmental. Imagine the power of a mind that instead of reacting goes to neutral, steps on that neutral and says, I'm going to examine everything now without reacting to see what other perspective I have. That's one of the things that a spiritual person does. They don't assume that everything is wrong or everyone's bad or everything's negative. They start off by simply saying, no matter what happens, there's still a spirituality in existence here. Let us not deny it. You can connect then with something that is spiritual. Emotional. We want emotional balance almost always coming from what? Stress. When most do you seek an emotional balance? When do you crave it? When you're in crisis. When you're in crisis, you start looking for answers. If you wake up tomorrow morning and you're not in crisis, what's the motivation if you wake up tomorrow and you're not in crisis to want to create an emotional balance tomorrow? None. You go right through your day like the day's just another day because you're not in crisis. So crisis, emotional crisis, challenge, threat to our being, our ego, our self-esteem, our self-importance, when that's threatened enough that we're in a crisis about it, then we seek something to create an emotional balance. Now, in our society, we seek tranquilizers. We want to create an artificial state of bliss, but not a natural one. But when each day you wake up and realize, gee, I have some choices here. I can say and feel things that will allow me not to overreact to people and events, and therefore look for the best in all things. If it's a rainy day or a sunny day, if I'm rich or poor is not the issue. Really, that shouldn't determine whether or not I feel good or bad about myself. But the fact that I'm alive, and I'm alive for another day, and I should never take that day for granted.